Welcome to my channel Pulkit Pedia, step by step learning. Today we are going to discuss about Python variable and assigning values to it. So basically what is a variable? Variable is kind of a symbolic name and which can point to an object or any you can understand any value. So or you can understand that variable is a container where you can store something like in a glass where you can hold some water. So it's a placeholder. So how do we define a variable in Python? So we can define a variable in Python in a format like first we have to define a variable name and then equal to sign then assign a value to it. The similar we had done in our mathematics like you define a variable like x and equal to some value like 10, and like in other programming language you in advance you can define a variable and then you can assign a value to it, but in Python no, this is not possible. When you define or declare a variable you need to assign a value to it, and there are certain rules related to variable name convention in Python, like variable name must start with a letter or an underscore. So I'll showcase you some examples of variable name which are valid, and I will show you some invalid variable names also in Python. So we'll be using spider as a GUI for demonstration purpose. So I'll clear out this console and you can see that first one is an integer. Integer is a numeric value. I define a variable and assign a value to it as a 1. You can see variable name then equal to and 1, and then I want to print this value to see what value a is containing. So the hash I had given here it is to comment that part. So when I'll execute this file then it will not be executed. So you if you want to write some comments or some notes for your learning, so you can use hash before that, and you can see that every file in Python will be having an extension of .py. So moving to the next, this is also an example of integer with the a big value. So b is containing the big value and then we'll be printing out the p. And suppose you want to store a value with the decimal numbers, that is also possible. Like we are storing a value variable in p pi and storing a value 3.14 which is pi value in it, and then we'll be printing it out. Now this is all about numeric value or integers. Now if you want to store a string, so string, like we have created a variable name as text and assigning a value a to it in a single quotes. You can define strings in multiple ways like single quote, double quote. The same way, the a string like name, I had assigned a value to it as Pulkit Pedia. Now moving to the next variable, a Boolean variable. Boolean. I'll give you an example what a Boolean means. That Boolean have two states. One is true and a false. Like I'll give you an example of your electricity switch at your home. So it will be like in two states, on and off. So you're pressing in the button, then electricity supply will be on, and putting it off, the supply will be stopped. So it will be also having a two states. So same way, Boolean variables have two states, true and false. And if you want to declare a variable, as we mentioned that when we have to declare a variable, we have to initialize a value to it. So if you don't want to define any value, certain value, you want to define it as an empty value or null value, so you can give it as a none character. Okay, now you want to know that how this particular means what you know how to get to know what value variable is containing by using the print function. This is an inbuilt function of Python, but you want to know the what kind of variable it is. So you can use a type inbuilt function like print type, and then you pass in a variable. It will tell you that what kind of variable is it. So I'll show you all with the output. So if you have three variables, for example, and like s equals to t equals to y, and you want to assign this same value to all, you can also define in this way, like s t and y equal to 2. Okay, so I'll first execute this one, then we'll see the output of each, and this is the way we'll run the file. And here we can see the output. Here the first print function is giving us a value of a equals to 1. Second one giving in a value what b is storing as the long number. And the third print is giving us a value of p, that the pi value. And fourth one, the what value the text contains, like a, and what value the name contains, Pulkit Pedia, and what value the button contains, that is true. And as we have assigned a none value to x variable, that is also printed here. Now as I told you that I want to know what kind of variable this is, like so we had passed a type inbuilt function within a variable, so it is printing it as an integer. Okay, so moving next, as I mentioned that we can assign multiple, if we want to assign a same value to multiple variables, that is also possible. Like sty, we had given a one value, and we had printed all. We can print the multiple variables by giving a comma in between, and it is printing it a value 111 to all. So I'll show you that syntax. If we give this way, for example, that uh, and this comma, and I'll print the statement again, so you can see this value again. So because here you can see that now we have not given a equal to, we are defining it as in a variable 2 as a separate variable and only passing value for y. That's why it's giving an error to us. Okay, now this is just about basic variable and naming and how we can assign a value to it. In addition, I will give you some example that there are some keywords in Python which we cannot use as a variable name. So I'll showcase you that what are the variable, and apart from that, as I discussed in the beginning of the session, that variable names must start with letter and underscore. So these are the samples of valid variables, like a equal to true is a valid variable, underscore b is also a valid variable. Okay, and if what are the examples of invalid variables, like the variables cannot start from a numeric value, so or a symbol. If I give you this, so you can see the automatically spider, the IDE is giving you an error here. And if I comment this one and uncomment this one, you can see the same, it is giving us a invalid syntax. And a variable name may consist of letters, number, and underscore. This is also a valid variable. You can see I had given Pulkit underscore pedia, then underscore in numeric value. And next is case sensitive. Variables are case sensitive. What does it mean? That the value assigned to x, the small x, the value assigned to the small x will be, if we are using in any expression or any calculation further, then the small x will be only referring to 9. But if, instead of if this you want to use capital X, like this is a small x, this is a capital X, you want to use this value, it will say this variable is not defined. So it means that variables are case sensitive. So I'll run this one and show you this. First is the keywords. The first, these are the keywords like false, none, true, and, as, assert, async. These are various keywords which will be using in the upcoming videos for doing Python programming and examples. So these are the keywords. We cannot use these keywords in the variable names, and so there is no error on AB because these are the right and valid variable names. If we open this, uncomment this, and run this, we get that okay, invalid syntax, which id was also giving to us. Same way, if we do this, you can see the invalid syntax. Okay, and if I open this, like accessing a value assigned to the small x and trying to access it by mentioning it as a capital X, it will give me also an X is not a defined variable. Okay, so thanks for watching my video. Stay connected and keep learning.